What is literature? Is it a central question for literary theory? Since theory itself intermingles ideas from philosophy, linguistics, history, political theory, and psychoanalysis, why should theorists worry about whether the texts they are reading are literary or not? The distinction has not seemed important because works of theory have discovered the literariness of non-literary phenomena. Prior to 1800s, literature and analogous terms in other European languages meant writings or book knowledge. The modern Western sense of literature as imaginative writing can be traced to the German Romantic theories of the late 18th century. Today, literature is whatever a given society treats as literature, a set of texts that cultural arbiters recognize as belonging to literature. Now, literary narratives can be seen as members of a larger class of stories, narrative display texts. Those utterances whose relevance to listeners lies not in information they convey, but in their tellability. Literature is a speech act or textual event that elicits certain kinds of attention. It contrasts with other sorts of speech acts, such as imparting information, asking questions, or making promises. Most of the time, what leads readers to treat something as literature is that they find it in a context that identifies it as literature. In a book of poems or a section of a magazine, library, or bookstore. The nature of literature. Literature as the foregrounding of language. Literariness is often said to lie above all in the organization of language that makes literature distinguishable from language used for other purposes. Literature as integration of language. Literature is language in which the various elements and components of the text are brought into a complex relation. Literature as fiction. The literary work is a linguistic event which projects a fictional world that includes speaker, actors, events, and an implied audience. Literary works refer to imaginary rather than historical individuals, but fictionality is not limited to characters and events. Literature as aesthetic object. Aesthetics is historically the name for the theory of art and has involved debates about whether beauty is an objective property of works of art or a subjective response of viewers, and about the relation of the beautiful to the true and the good. Aesthetic objects such as paintings or works of literature, with their combination of sensuous form, colors, sounds, and spiritual content, ideas, illustrate the possibility of bringing together the material and the spiritual. A literary work is an aesthetic object because, with other communicative functions initially bracketed or suspended, it engages readers to consider the interrelation between form and content. Literature as intertextual or self-reflexive construct. A work exists between and among other texts through its relations to them. To read something as literature is to consider it as a linguistic event that has meaning in relation to other discourses. Literature has been given diametrically opposed functions. Is literature an ideological instrument? Literature has been the activity of a cultural elite, and it has been what is sometimes called cultural capital. Learning about literature gives you a stake in culture that may pay off in various ways, helping you fit in with people of higher social status. But literature cannot be reduced to this conservative social function. Literature is a paradoxical institution because to create literature is to write according to existing formulas, to produce something that looks like a sonnet or that follows the conventions of the novel. But it is also to flout those conventions, to go beyond them. Literature is an institution that lives by exposing and criticizing its own limits, by testing what will happen if one writes differently. So literature is at the same time the name for the utterly conventional and disruptive.